Good morning, friends of Riverbend United Church, and welcome to worship on this second Sunday in Lent. You are welcome, no matter what. We remember that we live and worship and work and serve on Treaty 6 lands, and that we are a treaty people. May we honor those who have cared for these lands long before our arrival with everything that we do. We encourage you to take a look at our website, riverbendunited.org, to see what's happening, some opportunities for you and your spiritual journey during Lent. Even if you were not part of our last Wednesday evening Lenten study, you can still join in this Wednesday evening at 7 on Zoom. You can find the link for that on our website. We also encourage everyone to keep walking, keep taking stepping during Lent for our theme, Faith on the Move, and take some photos and send them in, whether you're stepping in place or doing breathing exercises in your own chair or out and about in the river valley and ravines and neighborhoods of this beautiful city. Take some photos and send them in. We'll use them during worship. You'll see some of that today, a little bit later in this service. A few brave folks who didn't really know what was being asked but sent photos anyway, and they're phenomenal. Some might even be out of this world. So thanks for your participation in that project of all the members of the church. We also invite you, if you just want to chit-chat in connection and fellowship with other Riverbend United Church members, you can do that on Tuesday morning coffee time at 9 o'clock on Zoom, or Thursday afternoon tea time at 3 o'clock, also on Zoom. I invite us to open our hearts and prepare to journey through the wilderness with the Israelites and the wilderness of our own hearts and our own circumstances, situation in these days, toward the promised land. Will you join us in our Introit led by our choir, where 2 or 3 are gathered?
Please join me now in the call to worship. Through the wilderness of our days, God lead us. As we travel these Lenten paths together, God lead us. We now share in Psalm 130 for our opening prayer. Out of the depths I cry to you, O Lord. Lord, hear my voice. Let your ears be attentive to the voice of my supplications. If you, O Lord, should mark iniquities, Lord, who could stand? But there's forgiveness with you, so that you may be revered. I wait for the Lord, my soul waits, and in God's word I hope. My soul waits for the Lord, more than those who watch for the morning, more than those who watch for the morning. Please join me now in our opening hymn, Throughout these Lenten days and nights, Voices United 108.
Throughout these Lenten days and nights, we turn to walk the inward way, where meeting Christ our guide and light, we live in hope till Easter day. The pilgrim Christ, the Lamb of God, who found in weakness greater power, embraces us though lost and thought, and leads us to his rising hour. So let us choose the path of one who bore for us the crown of thorn, and slept in death that we might wake to life on resurrection morn. Rejoice, O sons and daughters, sing and shout, Hosanna, praise the strain. For Christ, whose death Good Friday brings, on Easter Day will rise again.
Good morning, everybody. If your children aren't with you now, please grab them for a special children's lesson. So today we're going to talk a little bit about Lent. Do you know what Lent is, Adelaide? Have you ever heard the word Lent?
Nope.
No? Okay. So this week was the beginning of a very important season in our church year. The season of Lent. Do you remember how long Lent is? Do you, Adelaide?
Nope.
What about you guys at home? Do you remember how long Lent is? Well, Lent is about 40 days before Palm Sunday, which leads right into the Holy Week, and Easter Sunday. The word Lent comes from another word, lente, which means springtime. That makes sense, right? Since Lent and Easter is always happening during the springtime. Yeah. I was thinking about Lent and springtime, and I realized that many of the things that I like to do in the springtime are similar to the kinds of things that I can do in Lent to prepare for Easter. Let me explain. In the springtime, I like to open up. I put screens on my window and I open the windows and let all the fresh air in from like the cold, freezing cold winter where we bundle all up the windows, and it's kind of nice. So I let the fresh spring air in to fill my home with the smell of like flowers and warmth and, you know. For Lent, a great thing to do is open up our Bibles. Do you guys have Bibles at home? I have a Bible. And Addie and I sometimes read Bible stories at night. When we read our Bibles, God speaks fresh words to us and fills our hearts with his presence. In the springtime, I like to clear out, especially the clutter in my house and the clutter in my closet, because I've always have so much stuff going on, and I'm a firm believer that I'm a collector of junk. I am a junk collector. So in the springtime, I like to go through my closet and take out all the things that I don't really need, like my heavy coats and like my boots and my shoes and all the things that are in the way that I don't really need anymore because winter's over. For Lent, it's good to clean out our things in our lives that we don't really need, things that get in the way of us following Jesus. For example, maybe you watch TV or play video games a lot. Is that a possibility? What about you, Adelaide? Do you watch a lot of TV? Do you watch a lot of YouTube videos? Yeah? Why not put them away for a while and use that extra time to help out with your family or spend with your dog? Take him to the dog park a little bit more, okay? In the spring times, I always need to sweep up. I try to clean up all the dirt in my home that's been hiding away all winter. Like under my rug. Dirt that no one else sees, but the dirt that I know is there. For Lent, it's good to ask ourselves, Have I made any mistakes or messes that I need to clean up? Do I need to apologize to someone or something I said or did at one point over the winter? Do I need to ask for forgiveness? I don't know. In the springtime, I like to plant. I plant seeds in my garden with pots and water and then wait for them to grow into something beautiful. For Lent, it's good for us to plant different kinds of seeds. We can plant seeds of love in our hearts for others when we are kind or helpful, or when we tell someone about what's going on in our life and Jesus. For Lent, think of something you can do that will become something beautiful for someone else, and do it because you want to and because you care. So today I want you guys at home to think about something that you can change for Lent, like something that you can give up or something that you can take on. Like for me, I would like to be more physically active. So I'm going to try to walk at least 1 kilometer every day. And I've been doing pretty good so far. What about you guys at home? What about you, Adelaide?
I walk on the treadmill.
Yeah, Addie's going to start being a little bit more active too. This COVID really put us in a little bit of a bind. Okay, so how about we all pray together? Dear Jesus, we love you. Help us to open our Bibles, clear out our clutter, sweep up our messes, and plant seeds of love. Amen. That's it for us today. Have a great week, everybody. See you soon.
I've got peace like a river. I've got peace like a river. I've got peace like a river in my soul. I've got peace like a river. I've got peace like a river. I've got peace like a river in my soul. I've got joy like a fountain. I've got joy like a fountain. I've got joy like a fountain in my soul. I've got joy like a fountain. I've got joy like a fountain. I've got joy like a fountain in my soul. I've got love like an ocean. I've got love like an ocean. I've got love like an ocean in my soul. I've got love like an ocean. I've got love like an ocean. I've got love like an ocean in my soul.
I am reading Exodus 3, verses 3 to 8 and 13 to 15. Moses was keeping the flock of his father-in-law, Jethro, the priest of Midian. He led his flock beyond the wilderness and came to Horeb, the mountain of God. There the angel of the Lord appeared to him in a flame of fire out of a bush. He looked, and the bush was blazing, yet it was not consumed. Then Moses said, I must turn aside and look at this great sight and see why the bush is not burned up. When the Lord saw that he had turned aside to see, God called him out of the bush. Moses, Moses. And he said, Here I am. Then he said, Come no closer. Remove the sandals from your feet, for the place on which you are standing is holy ground. He said further, I am the God of your father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. And Moses hid his face, for he was afraid to look at God. Then the Lord said, I have observed the misery of my people who are in Egypt. I have heard their cry on account of their taskmasters. Indeed, I know their sufferings, and I have come to deliver them from the Egyptians, and to bring them up out of that land to a good and broad land, a land flowing with milk and honey. But Moses said to God, if I came to the Israelites and say to them, the God of your ancestors has sent me to you, and they ask me, what is his name? What shall I say to them? God said to Moses, I am who I am. He said further, thus you shall say to the Israelites, I am has sent me to you. God also said to Moses, thus you shall say to the Israelites, the Lord, the God of your ancestors, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob has sent me to you. This is my name forever, and this is my title for all generations. I will now read Luke 15, 11 till 13, and verses 20 to 24. Then Jesus said, there was a man who had 2 sons. The younger of them said to his father, Father, give me the share of the property that will belong to me. So he divided his property between them. A few days later, the younger son gathered all he had and traveled to a distant country, and there he squandered his property in dissolute living. So he set off and went to his father. But while he was still far off, his father saw him and was filled with compassion. He ran and put his arms around him and kissed him. Then the son said to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and before you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. But the father said to his slaves, Quickly, bring out a robe, the best one, and put it on him. Put a ring on his finger and sandals on his feet. And get the fatted calf and kill it, and let us eat and celebrate. For this son of mine was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found. And they began to celebrate.
Thank you to Sandra Bucerius for being our lay reader this morning. I want to share with you a story that's been coming up for me from time to time through this year, and especially over the last week. It happened about, I didn't do the math, many years ago when I was young and living on an Oklahoma farm. Oklahoma is one of those rural southern states in the U.S. I was out on a tractor in the middle of a field, a hay field, stacking the great big round bales of hay. You've seen them on your drives through rural Alberta, I'm sure. And as I'm in this tractor stacking this hay, something catches my eye. I stop the tractor, I get out, I walk over, and it's actually a multicolored collection of deflated balloons. It's a balloon bouquet, mostly deflated. A few had a little air left, not many. And I pick it up and it dangles down in its limp way, and there's a card attached to this bouquet of deflated balloons. So I pick it up and read the card, and it turns out it was sent by an elementary school classroom of children the next state up, Kansas. And it had a note on it saying, we're releasing these balloons. We want to know what happens to them. If you find them, please let us know at this address. Of course, this was the days before cell phones and internet, email. So I dutifully, like a good citizen, wrote a little note to these children in Kansas at their elementary school that said, quoting Tolkien, author of The Hobbit, because I had been reading The Hobbit. My little note said this to the kids in Kansas: all that is gold does not glitter. Not all those who wander are lost. The poem goes on. The old that is strong does not wither. Deep roots are not reached by the frost. So I wrote that out with a note that said to the kids, your balloons wandered, but they were not lost. They are found. The next, maybe 2 weeks later, I get this envelope in the mail, one of those big manila envelopes, and it's thick. And so I open it up, and it still touches my heart. Inside were so many notes from the children of this elementary school. They wanted to know all about my farm in Oklahoma and where the balloons were they in a tree, in the creek? And they wanted to thank me for letting them know that I had found them. I think it's been coming up in me recently because those kids, they could have held on to that balloon bouquet in their classroom to cheer up their days. There's so many things they could have done with them, but they released them in the spirit of letting them wander and see where they might be found, or find a new home. Where would they land, these balloons that the children freed into the Kansas winds? In these pandemic days, we also may feel like we are wandering, and we also may actually be found in a new land, in a new way of being together. One way to read this story of the Israelites being freed from captivity, slavery to the Pharaoh in Egypt, wandering through the wilderness for 40 years, and then eventually coming to the edge of their new land, the promised land. One way of reading this story, in addition to the historical nature of it, is to read it as a metaphor for our human soul journeys, if you will. The journey of a human consciousness being bound by our false sense of self, our identification with ourselves and our egos. We are enslaved to that. We wander, releasing that slowly over time, opening and softening through every difficulty and every pressure. And then we enter a promised land. That may be a stretch for you to read it that way, but I find when I approach our scriptures looking for various levels of meaning within the stories, they become so rich, and they are becoming, our sacred stories are becoming more rich to me in these days. Regarding reading the story of the Israelites' freedom from captivity and wandering through the wilderness, eventually to the edge of the promised land, as a metaphor, there's a psychiatrist named Bob Rosenthal. He wrote a book called From Plagues to Miracles. The subtitle is The Transformational Journey of Exodus, from the slavery of the ego to the promised land of spirit. He says this about our story today. We start with the understanding that Exodus is far more than just a simple story about winning freedom. It's an allegorical portrait of the human mind. Remember, he's a psychiatrist. I might interpret it differently, but for him, an allegorical portrait of the human mind. Its two central characters in our story, the Pharaoh and Moses, are not just historical figures, not just characters in a biblical drama. They are archetypes that portray opposing aspects of the human mind in its relationship to spirit. He goes on to describe how Pharaoh represents the part of us that believes it is separated from God and tries to secure its self-identity. And that Moses represents the part of us that is connected grounded in God, grounded in our true being through spirit. If you joined us last week, you might remember we spoke of the Ruach at the beginning of creation as the wind, the breath, the spirit upon which all life depends. So when we read this story as a metaphor, if we are bound in slavery to the ego, we forget our dependence on the spirit, on the divine. As we free ourselves from that, we let go of our old ways and wander for a while toward the promise that is written in our hearts. In the story, the Israelites felt hungry and thirsty, and they complained against Moses. Why did you ever free us from slavery? At least we had food and drink. I think it's like that as we slowly drop beneath, open through the tight grip of our self-identification and our wants and needs. We may feel a little uncomfortable, a little hungry and thirsty for those comforts of who I am and what I'm here for and so forth. We continue opening and softening through the draws back toward slavery, bondage, Egypt, and slowly we start casting our eyes on what's ahead, a new way. In these pandemic days, we have been cast into the wilderness, and there is such a pull upon all the world to go back to the way it was, but we know better. We know better now. We've seen the blue skies and the clear waters. We've felt the quiet of the earth when people are tending to their families. And yes, there has been loneliness and isolation and a yearning to be with our loved ones and our dear friends. But step back from that for a moment and look at the whole board, the whole perspective. It's an invitation still before us. Whatever the world ends up doing and corporations, however they end up patching their businesses together, however we end up going back to our bustling lives where we filled time with what? However all that happens, right in the midst of it, we can march toward the promised land of a way of being that is freed from bondage and home in our hearts as beloved children of the divine. It's possible, and it's being invited of us. Really quickly, the second story, the prodigal son, it's very, very similar. The son goes off to live for his wants and his needs, and he hits hard times and realizes there's something else. And as he comes home, there he is greeted only warmly, just as he is, with pure grace in the story. No grudge. No judgment. You are accepted. You are accepted. The son in the story, just as he is, you and I, just as we are. And so the father in the story says, quickly, bring out the robe and put it on him, the best one. Put a ring on his finger and sandals on his feet, and go get the fatted calf and kill it, and let us eat and celebrate. For this son of mine was dead and is alive again. He is lost. He was lost and is found. Beautiful stories of lost and wandering and being found. And stories of our invitation. At the burning bush, when Moses says to God, "Who do I tell the people of Israel is leading them?" What do I tell them your name is? And God says, I am. That shall be my title for all generations. I am. Pure amness, beingness, presence, here and now. That's how we are found. Presence in this moment, now. We are going to hear in a moment a story by way of our prayers of the people, told by Ray and Diane Hawrelak, who offered presence to someone. And before that, we're going to see a few of our folks out and about with their photos of Faith on the Move. This is a part of our worship put together by Carolyn Miller and your photos. And the song is beautifully sung by George Irwin. Let's see members of Riverbend United sharing as Faith on the Move out and about in our city and beyond.
I am walking a path of peace. I am walking a path of peace. I am walking a path of peace. Lead me home. Lead me home. I am walking a path of love. I am walking a path of love. I am walking a path of love. Lead me home. Lead me home. I am walking a path of grace. I am walking a path of grace. I am walking a path of grace. Lead me home. Lead me home. I am walking a path of hope. I am walking a path of hope. I am walking a path of hope. Lead me home. Lead me home.
Greetings, Riverbend. I'm Ray Hawrelak. This is my wife Diane with me, and we're here on the banks of the North Saskatchewan River, right at the bend in the river that's given this community its name, Riverbend. We often come here on our walks through the neighborhood, and we've been doing some of our Lenten steps as part of our Faith on the Move initiative through this neighborhood. And a couple of nights ago, we came across a lady named Gwen, and Di's going to tell you a little bit of her story.
So we were just walking along, and this car was traveling and slowed down and said hello. And I thought, oh, probably a neighbor, somebody I know. So I eagerly said hello back, and she said hi again. And I said, oh, I didn't recognize her. Do you need some help? And she said, yes, I do need some help. So I happily went over to the car and offered my assistance. And when I got closer, I noticed she was extremely distraught. So so I said, oh, please tell me what's troubling you. What's going on? And I said, let's just move your car to the side of the road and let's have a conversation. She said, what I really need is a hug. And I said, oh gosh, don't we all need that? And I said, but it's COVID and that's not the safe thing to do right now. So, but I continued to engage in conversation with her. And what we learned was that day was the birth date of her daughter. And she was sad to continue that her daughter had lost her life to terrible illness when she was 5. And so I was trying to think, okay, what could we say? What could I say that would provide some comfort with this, like knowing this really tragic story? And I thought of a dear friend of mine who recently lost a child, and I know what brings her comfort and peace is just talking about her child. So I asked, and we soon then found out that her name was Gwen. And so I said, Gwen, tell me your daughter's name. And her daughter's name was Kit. What a beautiful name, I said. And so I told Gwen that Ray and I were walking to mark Lent, and she knew what that was and thought that was pretty cool. And I said, you know what, Gwen, over these next coming days, I'm going to commit to you that I'm gonna look up at the moon, and the moon was just shining so brightly that night. And I said, I'm gonna look up to the moon, and I'm gonna think of Kit, and I'm gonna think of you, and I want you to look up at the moon and know that I am thinking of you and that we're going to be connected. And she really found it seemed to me, some sense of comfort with that. And so, friends, I would ask you, look up at the moon, think of Kit, think of Gwen, think of the people near you that could use a little bit of comfort, and together we will get through this, and we will walk in better days.
Unfortunately, none of us are strangers to the loss of a loved one. And in many cases, in particular, those that have lost young ones before their time, as we look at the moon and the stars across the river valley, out the window, and all of those places that give us peace and prayer and meditation, we can think of Gwen and Kit and all of those who have lost loved ones. And while we're at it, we think of our friends in Texas that are recovering from weird weather. We think of all of our friends who are suffering, those that are suffering from the pandemic, illness, and other things. We think of all who are seeking peace. As we stand here in the riverbank, we also give thanks for the beauty of these spaces, for places to connect, and for places where we can contemplate these things that shape our lives. Peace to all. Amen.
Our closing hymn is "O God, How We Have Wandered." Voices United number 112, performed by our Riverbend United Church Choir.
O God, how we have wandered and hidden from your face, in foolishness have squandered your legacy of grace. But how in
Profound thanks to everyone who continues to participate in and helping to lead and produce and create these services of worship so that we can all stay connected. I want to invite you next Sunday to come to this service with a piece of bread and a cup of something, or a cracker. We will share in communion virtually, so that will be next Sunday, March 7th. And now we go out with the words of the prophet Micah. What is it that God requires of us? To do justice, to love kindness, and to walk ever so humbly with our God. We will be sent forth by our choir as we share in the prayer of dedication. Go in peace, friends. Amen.